Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Wisdom channel. Tonight, we'll be exploring Ayurveda, one of the world's most enduring systems for understanding health, balance, and the art of living well. At first, Ayurveda can sound like a form of ancient medicine. But the deeper you look, the more sophisticated it becomes. It doesn't begin with sickness. It begins with life itself. It asks how a person eats and sleeps, works and rests, and relates to the changing world around them. This is a tradition that treats daily routines as a form of wisdom. It sees the body as something to study with patience. It sees the mind as part of health, not separate from it. And it suggests that small choices, repeated over time, can shape the direction of a life. Some of its ideas feel ancient. Some feel remarkably modern, and many are still being discussed today. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your shoulders relax and notice your eyes grow heavy. And as the day begins to gently fade away, join me as we explore this ancient path of balance together. Let's begin. Ayurveda teaches that health is learned through harmony. This is the first doorway into the whole tradition. Ayurveda does not treat well-being as something random that appears when life is lucky. It presents health as a skill that can be studied through the body, the senses, the seasons, and the choices made each day. That idea alone feels strangely modern. Long before wellness trackers and sleep apps, this tradition was asking people to notice patterns. What happens after a meal? What changes after late nights? What kind of weather sharpens the mind or slows the body? Some people see this as one of Ayurveda's most radical claims. The human being is not a machine waiting to break. The human being is a living field of habits. In that view, balance is not passive. It is trained. It is remembered. It is lost when life becomes careless. And it is rebuilt through attention. The word Ayurveda means knowledge of life, not just medicine. That single translation changes the whole subject. Ayurveda is often introduced as an ancient healing system, but its own name points to something wider. It comes from Sanskrit roots that join life with knowing. So the goal is not only to fix symptoms after trouble appears. The deeper aim is to understand how life functions when it is guided wisely. That includes food, rest, aging, conduct, desire, memory, discipline, and the way a person moves through the day. Some people find this surprising because it makes Ayurveda feel less like a cabinet of herbs and more like a map of existence. It suggests that living well requires education, not abstract education, but close observation of ordinary experience. The body becomes a text. The day becomes a teacher. Even discomfort becomes a message. From the beginning, Ayurveda asks a bold question. What would life look like if health were part of wisdom itself? Ancient physicians treated daily habits as serious spiritual practice. In Ayurveda, a morning routine was not treated as a small lifestyle detail. It could be part of a much larger philosophy about self-mastery. The physician was not only interested in what someone took when they became unwell. He also wanted to know how they woke, cleaned the body, prepared for meals, managed desire, and settled the mind before sleep. To a modern listener, that can sound almost extreme, but it reveals a powerful assumption. Most lives are shaped less by dramatic decisions than by repeated acts that barely seem important. The late snack, the rushed breakfast, the ignored tiredness, the resentment carried for years. Ayurveda placed these things under serious attention because it saw ordinary behavior as the hidden architecture of health. In a more speculative mood, some people even say it reads like an ancient operating manual for human energy. Not because every claim is proven, but because the scale of its attention is astonishing. Your digestion was considered the doorway to your entire well-being. This is one of Ayurveda's most famous and striking ideas. Digestion was not reduced to the stomach doing a job after food arrived. It was seen as a central intelligence that helped decide whether nourishment became strength or burden. A meal could be expensive, pure, and carefully prepared, yet still become troublesome if the body could not process it well. That is a deeply practical idea, and it has a strange power when you hear it clearly. Ayurveda asks people to care less about food as a label and more about food as an event. How was it eaten? Was there hunger? Was the mind calm? Was the previous meal finished? Was the season suitable? Some people love this because it flips a common modern assumption. The same substance does not mean the same result for every person. In this view, digestion is not a small fire in the belly. It is the threshold where the outside world becomes you. Sushruta described surgical training with gourds, reeds, and animal tissue. This detail makes the ancient world feel suddenly alive. Sushruta is remembered in Indian medical history for his surgical teachings, and the training methods attributed to his school sound remarkably hands-on. Students were told to practice cutting, probing, scraping, and stitching on things that could safely imitate living tissue. A gourd could teach incision. A reed could teach careful entry. Animal tissue could teach resistance under the hand. Whether every detail reached us unchanged is hard to know, but the spirit of the teaching is clear. Skill had to be earned before a patient was touched. That is astonishing because it shows a culture thinking seriously about simulation before modern laboratories existed. It also disrupts the easy idea that ancient medicine was only prayer and guesswork. Here we find discipline, rehearsal, and an almost craftsmanlike respect for danger. Some people hear this and feel the past move closer. The surgeon's hand was trained through patience before it was trusted with life. Charaka taught that prevention is wiser than heroic treatment. Charaka's world was not built around waiting for collapse and then celebrating rescue. The deeper wisdom was to notice trouble before it became dramatic. That may sound simple, but it changes the moral shape of medicine. Prevention asks for humility. It asks people to admit that the future is being written in the present. A person who ignores small warnings may later demand a miracle. Ayurveda was suspicious of that pattern. It praised timely correction, regular living, and the intelligent removal of causes. This is why its advice can feel so direct. Do not keep feeding what disturbs you. Do not praise intensity when the body is begging for rhythm. Some people think this is where Ayurveda becomes almost philosophical. It is not only concerned with survival, it is concerned with foresight. The wise person does not wait until the house is burning before learning about fire. Health begins when the first spark is noticed. The doshas turn personality, climate, food, and illness into one language. Few ideas in Ayurveda are more fascinating than the doshas because they create a single vocabulary for many layers of life. A dry wind, a restless mind, a cracking joint, a scattered day, and a light meal can all be discussed through related qualities. This does not mean the system is a simple personality quiz. At its best, it is more like pattern recognition. Ayurveda looks for repeating signatures across body and behavior. Is something moving too much? Is something heating too strongly? Is something becoming heavy or stuck? Some people are drawn to the doshas because they make the invisible feel readable. They offer a way to connect events that modern life often separates. The weather outside, the food on the plate, the mood in the room, the ache that appears at a certain time. Whether one takes the model literally or symbolically, it is an unusually bold attempt to describe life as an interconnected pattern. Ayurveda sees timing as medicine before any herb is chosen. This teaching sounds ordinary until you realize how far it reaches. In Ayurveda, the right thing at the wrong time can become the wrong thing. A meal may be nourishing when hunger is clear, but heavy when the body is still busy. Sleep may restore at night, but dull the mind when taken carelessly in the day. A warming spice may help in one season and feel excessive in another. The tradition keeps returning to this theme because timing reveals relationship. Nothing exists in isolation. Food meets digestion. Effort meets strength. Rest meets need. Some people find this idea almost mystical because it suggests that medicine is not only substance, but moment. The clock, the season, the age of the person, and the state of the body all matter. This makes Ayurveda feel less like a fixed rulebook and more like a living conversation. The question is not only what should be done. The question is when life is ready to receive it. True health includes a steady mind and peaceful senses. Ayurveda does not define health as the simple absence of disease. Its classical vision points toward a more complete condition, where the body functions well and the inner life is not constantly disturbed. That is a demanding standard. It means a person could look strong while still being considered unsettled. The senses might be overstimulated. The mind might be restless. The emotions might be dragged by every contact with the world. In this tradition, those things matter because they influence how experience is digested. A sharp sound, a harsh word, a disturbing image, or an anxious thought can leave an imprint. Some people see this as one of Ayurveda's most ahead-of-its-time insights. It understood that well-being is not only biochemical, it is also experiential. The nervous system of a person is shaped by what they repeatedly take in. So health becomes a cultivated steadiness, not numbness, not denial, a calmer power to meet life without being constantly thrown around by it. Food is treated as information that teaches the body daily. This idea makes every meal feel more important. Ayurveda does not see food only as fuel or pleasure. It sees food as something that instructs the body. A heavy meal teaches heaviness. A sharp meal teaches heat. A dry meal teaches dryness. A fresh, well-matched meal teaches the body a different message. This way of thinking can sound strange at first, but it has a practical logic. What we take in becomes part of our tissue, mood, stamina, and perception over time. The meal is not finished when the plate is empty. Its effects continue quietly. Some people love this because it makes eating feel less moralistic and more intelligent. Food is not judged as good or bad in a simplistic way. It is judged by relationship. Who is eating? When they are eating, what state they are in, what the body needs next. Ayurveda's deeper point is direct. The body listens to what is repeated. The three doshas explain change through movement, heat, and structure. Ayurveda uses vata, pitta, and kapha to make sense of how life keeps shifting. Instead of beginning with isolated organs, it begins with forces that can be observed through qualities. Movement includes breathing, blinking, circulation, speech, and thought. Heat includes digestion, appetite, intensity, and sharp perception. Structure includes tissue, endurance, lubrication, and physical steadiness. This gives the tradition a simple but surprisingly flexible framework. It can describe a person who cannot settle, It can describe a person who burns through energy too quickly. It can describe a person who becomes heavy, slow, or resistant. Some people treat this like ancient personality science, but that is only the surface. The deeper fascination is that Ayurveda watched processes rather than labels. It asked, what is increasing? It asked, what is declining? It asked what quality has taken over the system. In that way, the doshas are not just categories. They are a language of change. Vata represents motion, from breathing to thought and circulation. Vata is often described as the principle of movement, and that makes it one of the most intriguing ideas in Ayurveda. It is linked with anything that travels, pulses, shifts, or communicates inside the body. The breath moves. The eyes move. Nerve signals move. Speech moves from intention into sound. Even thoughts seem to move through awareness. Ayurveda placed these patterns under one umbrella, which gives Vata a strange explanatory power. When balanced, it is associated with creativity, quickness, adaptability, and life's natural flow. When disturbed, it is traditionally connected with dryness, irregularity, tremor, anxiety, and scattered attention. Some people find Vata fascinating because it feels like the ancient world trying to understand the hidden wiring of animation. What makes a living being dynamic rather than inert? What turns still matter into a responsive organism? In Ayurvedic thinking, motion is not a side effect of life. It is one of life's primary signatures. Pitta governs transformation, including digestion, deception, and inner intensity. Pitta is the Ayurvedic principle of heat and conversion. It is not only about physical warmth. It is about the power that changes one thing into another. Food becomes usable nourishment. Light becomes sight. Information becomes judgment. Desire becomes action. This is why Pitta can feel so compelling to modern listeners. It connects the fire in the stomach with the sharpness in the mind. When balanced, it is associated with courage, clarity, leadership, and precise understanding. When excessive, the same force can become irritation, harsh criticism, inflammation, and impatience. That dual nature is the key. Ayurveda does not treat intensity as automatically good or bad. It asks whether intensity is serving wisdom or burning through restraint. Some people see Pitta as the archetype of the driven person who can build a life and damage it through the same inner flame. It is transformation with a price. Without guidance, the force that clarifies can also consume. Kapha gives stability, lubrication, patience, endurance, and physical form. Kapha may be the least glamorous dosha at first glance, but it is quietly profound. It represents the forces that hold things together. Bones need support. Joints need smoothness. The heart needs emotional steadiness. Relationships need loyalty. Sleep needs the ability to surrender. Ayurveda gathers these qualities into kapha and treats them as essential to embodied life. Without this principle, everything would move too fast or burn too quickly. When balanced, kapha is linked with strength, calmness, memory, affection, and resilience. When it accumulates beyond usefulness, it may be associated with sluggishness, heaviness, attachment, or stagnation. Some people overlook kapha because modern culture often worships speed and intensity. But Ayurveda reminds us that survival also depends on holding, storing, and maintaining. A person cannot live on sparks alone. The body must have substance. The mind must have steadiness. Life needs something that stays. Every person carries all three doshas in a unique pattern. Ayurveda becomes more interesting when we move beyond simple labels. It does not say that one person is only Vata, another only Pitta, and another only Kapha. Each person contains all three principles because every living body must move, transform, and maintain structure. The difference is in proportion and expression. One person may be quick to learn, quick to speak, and quick to tire. Another may be decisive, hungry, and easily irritated. Another may be steady, loyal, and slow to change. But these are only clues. The full picture includes body type, appetite, sleep, emotional tendencies, climate response, and many other observations. Some people are drawn to this because it feels more nuanced than one-size-fits-all advice. It suggests that self-knowledge begins with pattern rather than judgment. You are not a mistake because your nature differs from someone else's. Ayurveda asks you to learn the design you were given, then live in a way that keeps it balanced. Imbalance begins when nature, habits, and constitution stop cooperating. In Ayurvedic thought, illness does not always begin as a sudden enemy. It can begin as a mismatch. A person with one natural tendency may repeatedly live in ways that exaggerate it. A restless person may add more rushing. A fiery person may add more pressure. A heavy person may add more inactivity. Over time, the original nature becomes distorted by repeated choices. The outer world also plays its part. Climate, work, age, travel, and emotional strain can push the system away from its center. Some people find this model powerful because it turns imbalance into a story rather than a random event. It asks what has been happening long before the obvious symptom appeared. That does not mean every illness is a personal failure. It means the tradition is deeply interested in cause and context. Ayurveda wants to know what the body has been negotiating. It asks where cooperation has broken down, and what might restore it without forcing the person against their own nature. Prakriti describes your original pattern before life disturbs it. Prakriti is one of Ayurveda's most personal ideas. It refers to the constitutional pattern believed to be present from early life. This pattern shapes tendencies in body, temperament, appetite, sleep, energy, and response to stress. It is not a prison. It is more like a starting design. Some people may naturally be light, quick, and sensitive. Others may be intense, focused, and warm. Others may be grounded, steady, and slow to be moved. Ayurveda's interest is not to rank these patterns. It wants to understand them so that advice can fit the person. This is where the tradition becomes surprisingly respectful of difference. It does not assume everyone should thrive on the same food, schedule, climate, exercise, or meditation style. Some people see Prakriti as an ancient answer to modern personalization. Before algorithms tried to customize everything, Ayurveda was already asking what kind of person stands before the healer. The first medicine was recognition. Vikriti describes the present imbalance, asking for careful attention. Vikriti is the current state of disturbance. It shows how a person may have drifted from their original balance. This idea matters because someone's nature and someone's problem are not always the same thing. A person may be naturally calm, yet temporarily agitated by stress. Another may be naturally sharp, yet become depleted after illness or grief. Ayurveda tries to separate the long-term pattern from the immediate condition. That distinction is valuable. Without it, advice can become clumsy. The body may need cooling today, warming tomorrow, rest this week, or movement later. Some people appreciate Vikriti because it makes healing feel dynamic. It does not freeze a person into a permanent type. It asks, what is happening now? What changed recently? What has increased? what quality is dominating. In a late-night speculative sense, it feels like reading the weather of the body. Not the climate of a lifetime, but the conditions passing through this moment. Agni is the digestive fire that Ayurveda watches most closely. Agni is one of the most important concepts in the whole tradition. It is usually translated as digestive fire, but its meaning reaches beyond the simple breaking down of food. Ayurveda uses it to describe the body's capacity to transform what comes in. Food must become nourishment. Experience must become understanding. Impressions must be processed without leaving confusion behind. That is why Agni can sound almost symbolic, yet it remains intensely practical. A strong but balanced Agni is associated with appetite, clarity, stable energy, and proper elimination. A disturbed Agni can appear as irregular hunger, heaviness after eating, burning discomfort, or poor assimilation. Some people are fascinated by this because it makes digestion the central drama of life. Every day, the outside world crosses a boundary and becomes part of the person. Ayurveda watches that boundary with extraordinary seriousness. It asks whether the inner fire is bright enough to transform, but not so fierce that it harms. Weak digestion can make even good food feel wrong. This is a simple teaching with a startling consequence. Ayurveda suggests that no food is automatically helpful outside the context of the person receiving it. A nourishing meal may still burden someone whose digestion is low. A respected ingredient may create discomfort if taken at the wrong time. A diet praised by one community may fail another body completely. This view challenges the modern search for a single perfect menu. Ayurveda would ask a different question. Can this person digest what they are being told to eat? That makes appetite, warmth, timing, mood, and previous meals part of the story. Some people find this almost rebellious because it refuses to worship health trends. It says the body's response matters more than an abstract reputation. The most impressive food on the table is not truly nourishing until it is transformed well. In this sense, digestion becomes the final judge. Not fashion, not theory, not even good intention. Ama describes unfinished digestion that may cloud body and mind. Ama is one of the most intriguing ideas in Ayurveda because it gives a name to what happens when experience is not properly processed. At the physical level, it is linked with residue from incomplete digestion. But the idea becomes much more interesting when it is treated as a wider pattern. A person may eat food that does not fully become nourishment. They may also take in stress, noise, conflict, and disappointment without truly resolving them. Ayurveda places attention on that unfinished material. It asks whether something has remained in the system as heaviness, dullness, coating, confusion, or sluggish movement. Some people hear this and think of it as a kind of ancient theory of internal clutter. Not just waste in the body, but unprocessed life sitting in the background. Whether taken literally or symbolically, the teaching is powerful. What is not transformed may not simply disappear. It may wait, accumulate, and quietly shape how a person feels. Taste is a practical tool, not just a pleasure. Ayurveda treats taste as a serious form of information. This is fascinating because most people think of taste as entertainment, preference, or craving. In this tradition, taste tells the body what kind of influence has arrived. A meal is not only delicious or unpleasant, it has direction. It may warm, cool, moisten, dry, stimulate, steady, lighten, or build. That means the tongue becomes more than a place of enjoyment. It becomes a diagnostic doorway. Before nutrition labels, laboratory analysis, and calorie charts, Ayurveda watched how food announced itself through direct experience, Some people find this idea strangely empowering because it returns intelligence to the senses. The body is not waiting passively for expert opinion from outside. It is already receiving signals. The challenge is learning how to read them. A craving may reveal need. It may also reveal imbalance. Taste becomes a conversation between desire, memory, constitution, and the state of the body in that moment. Ayurveda names 6 tastes that guide balanced eating. The 6 tastes give Ayurvedic eating one of its most memorable structures. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent are not treated as random flavors. They are treated as forces that influence the body in different ways. This makes a meal feel almost like a small balancing act. A plate that is too dominated by one taste may push the person in one direction. A plate that includes the right spread may feel more complete and satisfying. There is something oddly elegant about this. Long before modern diet culture turned food into numbers and forbidden categories, Ayurveda created a sensory map that anyone could begin to notice. Some listeners find it fascinating because it suggests that balance can be tasted directly. The tongue becomes the first teacher. The body does not need a lecture before it responds. It senses the character of what arrives. The meal becomes a small lesson in proportion, restraint, and self-knowledge. Sweet taste can nourish, comfort, and build depleted strength. Sweet taste is often misunderstood because modern minds quickly jump to refined sugar. Ayurveda is speaking about a broader category. Grains, milk, dates, root vegetables, and many nourishing foods can carry this taste. Traditionally, it is connected with building, soothing, and supporting tissues. That gives it a very different meaning from indulgence alone. The sweet taste can be medicine when someone is depleted, dry, exhausted, or recovering strength. But the same taste can become troublesome when it is taken without need or in excess. This is where Ayurveda becomes more interesting than simple food rules. It does not demonize comfort. It asks when comfort becomes heaviness. It does not condemn nourishment. It asks whether nourishment is being digested. Some people see this as a wise middle path. The body sometimes needs softness and repair. Yet the very thing that restores a weakened person can burden a person who already has too much stored weight, dampness, or lethargy. Sour taste can awaken appetite and sharpen sluggish digestion. Sour taste has a lively quality in Ayurvedic thinking. It can make the mouth water and prepare the body for food. Think of the quick response produced by lemon, fermented foods, tamarind, or a sharp pickle. Something in the system wakes up. The senses lean forward. The meal becomes more inviting. This is why sourness was not treated as a casual flavor. It had purpose. It could stimulate appetite when the body felt dull and reluctant. If Ayurveda is careful with power, too much sour taste was traditionally linked with irritation, heat, and an edge of dissatisfaction. That makes it psychologically interesting. A little sharpness can bring life back. Too much sharpness can make a person feel restless and reactive. Some people enjoy this kind of teaching because it turns flavor into personality. Sour taste does not merely sit on the tongue. It moves the whole person toward readiness, intensity, and sometimes impatience. Salty taste can ground the body while increasing thirst. Salty taste is direct, immediate, and almost impossible to ignore. Ayurveda saw it as softening, moistening, and grounding when used properly. It can make food satisfying. It can help bring flavor into focus. It can also pour water, provoke thirst, and create a feeling that more is wanted. That last part is especially interesting. Salt does not merely season desire. It can amplify it. Anyone who has eaten salted smacks late at night understands this without needing a theory. Ayurveda took that everyday experience and gave it meaning. Too little salt may leave food flat and unsatisfying. Too much may create heaviness, heat, swelling, or craving. Some people find this teaching fascinating because it reveals how easily the body can be led by taste. A small crystal can change behavior. It can make a person eat past hunger. It can make water feel urgent. In Ayurveda, even the simplest flavor has consequences. Bitter taste is traditionally linked with lightness and cleansing. Bitter taste is not popular because it rarely flatters the tongue at first contact. Yet Ayurveda gives it a serious and respected place. Bitter foods and herbs are often associated with lightness, dryness, and a clearing influence. Greens, neem, bitter melon, and certain herbal preparations belong to this wider world. The interesting point is that Ayurveda does not equate pleasant taste with usefulness. Sometimes what the body needs may not be what desire immediately chooses. Bitter taste interrupts appetite. It cuts through richness. It creates distance from excess. That is why some people see it as the taste of discipline. Not punishment, but correction. In a culture trained to chase sweetness, salt, and stimulation, bitterness can feel almost rebellious. It reminds the eater that nourishment is not always entertainment. There is intelligence in what challenges the palate. Ayurveda suggests that the body may sometimes require a flavor that teaches restraint before it offers comfort. Pungent taste can stimulate heat, movement, and alertness. Pungent taste arrives with force. It is the bite of pepper, the brightness of ginger, the intensity of mustard, and the heat that spreads after certain spices touch the tongue. Ayurveda treats this taste as stimulating and penetrating. It can wake up a slow system, encourage circulation, clear a sense of heaviness, and make dull food feel alive. That makes it exciting, but also risky when overused. Too much pungency can irritate, dry, overheat, or push the mind toward sharpness. The fascination lies in its speed. Some tastes comfort slowly. Pungent taste announces itself immediately. It creates a bodily event. A person may sweat, breathe differently, or feel sudden clarity. Some people hear this and understand why spice became more than cuisine in traditional cultures. It was a tool for climate, digestion, preservation, and sensation. In Ayurveda, heat is never just heat. It is a force that must be directed wisely. Astringent taste can dry, tighten, and create restraint. Astringent taste is harder to explain until someone remembers the feeling of strong tea, unripe banana, pomegranate rind, or certain beans. The mouth tightens. Moisture seems to draw inward. Ayurveda pays close attention to that sensation and treats it as meaningful. Astringency is linked with drying, firming, and absorbing. It can bring a sense of closure where things feel too loose or excessive. That makes it a fascinating taste because it works almost like a boundary. It says, enough. It gathers. It contracts. But like every Ayurvedic tool, it can go too far. Too much astringency may increase dryness, stiffness, or a feeling of emotional withdrawal. Some people find this idea compelling because it turns an overlooked flavor into a teacher of limits. Not all healing comes from adding warmth or softness. Sometimes the body needs containment. Sometimes a scattered system needs to be drawn back into shape through a taste that quietly says stop. Meals were judged by compatibility, not calories alone. Ayurveda developed a surprisingly complex concern with how foods behave together. It was not enough to ask whether each ingredient had value on its own. The tradition also asked, what happened when items met inside a particular body. Certain combinations were considered harmonious. Others were viewed with caution because their qualities conflicted or because they were thought to disturb digestion. This gives Ayurvedic eating a detective quality. The plate is not just a collection of parts. It is an event created by relationship. Some people find this deeply intriguing because modern nutrition often isolates nutrients, while Ayurveda watches interaction. Milk with certain fruits, fish with dairy, heavy foods taken with poor digestion. These are not merely menu details in the classical imagination. They are clues in a larger theory of internal chemistry. Whether one accepts every rule or not, the underlying idea is powerful. A thing can be good alone and still become unwise in combination. Dinacharya turns ordinary mornings into a quiet health practice. Dinacharya is the daily routine that gives Ayurveda its practical backbone. The fascinating part is how ordinary it sounds at first. Wake at a suitable time. Clean the mouth. Attend to the senses. Move the body. Eat with awareness. Prepare for the day with intention. None of this seems dramatic. Yet Ayurveda treats repetition as one of the strongest medicines available. The morning matters because it sets the nervous system, appetite, and attention on a certain path. Some people are drawn to this idea because it feels like a hidden lever inside life. You do not need a grand transformation every day. You need a beginning that does not scatter you. In speculative language, Dinacharya feels like an ancient reset protocol. The person rises from sleep and re-enters the world through deliberate acts. The body receives signals of order before noise takes over. Health is not chased later. It is invited at the start. Tongue cleaning became a daily mirror for digestion. Tongue cleaning is one of those Ayurvedic practices that seems small until its logic is understood. Each morning, the surface of the tongue can show coating, dryness, color changes, or residue. Ayurveda treated these signs as clues about what happened during the night and how digestion may be functioning. The act itself also removes buildup and sharpens taste. That makes it both observational and practical. Some people find this fascinating because it turns the bathroom mirror into a diagnostic station. Before breakfast, before conversation, before the mind becomes busy, the body presents evidence. What did yesterday leave behind? Is the mouth fresh? Is there heaviness? Is the appetite clear? The practice requires no complex machine. It asks for attention to a part of the body most people ignore. In that sense, tongue cleaning captures the Ayurvedic method beautifully. Look closely at ordinary signs. The body is constantly reporting, but only the attentive person receives the report. Oil massage taught people to calm the body through touch. Abhyanga, the practice of applying oil to the body, reveals how seriously Ayurveda took the skin. The body was not seen as sealed away from the world. Touch, temperature, texture, and rhythm could influence the whole system. Warm oil was traditionally used to soften, nourish, protect, and settle. For a person living with dryness, tension, travel, overwork, or nervous agitation, this could feel deeply regulating. Some people are fascinated by the simplicity. No device. No complicated philosophy in the moment. Just oil, hands, and time. The practice suggests that Kir can enter through the surface and speak to deeper layers. In a restless culture, that feels almost radical. Ayurveda understood that the body may not always calm down because it is told to calm down. Sometimes it needs a physical signal of safety. Touch becomes instruction. Warmth becomes reassurance. The skin becomes a doorway through which the person remembers, they are not merely a thinking head. Nasya placed attention on the nose as a vital gateway. Nasya is the Ayurvedic practice of applying substances through the nasal passage under appropriate guidance. What makes it fascinating is the importance given to the nose. Ayurveda viewed it as a major route connected with the head, the senses, breathing, and mental clarity. This turns a simple body part into a doorway of influence. The nose is always involved with life. It filters air. It receives scent. It affects the voice. It shapes the way breath enters. Some people are intrigued by this because scent and breath can change mood almost instantly. A familiar smell can unlock memory. Congestion can dull perception. Clear breathing can alter sleep and attention. Ayurveda built practices around that sensitivity. Nasya was not a casual habit for everyone in every circumstance. It belonged to a larger system of timing, preparation, and individual need. Still, the idea remained striking. A path of breath was treated as a path into the inner condition. Gargling with oil was used to support oral strength. Oil gargling appears unusual to many modern listeners, yet it comes from a practical concern with the mouth as a foundation of health. Ayurveda placed importance on teeth, gums, voice, taste, and the comfort of the jaw. Holding or moving oil in the mouth was traditionally used to nourish tissues, reduce dryness, and support oral resilience. The fascination is not only in the practice, but in the attitude behind it. The mouth was not merely an entry point for food. It was a living region with daily signals. Dryness, bad taste, soreness, coating, and weakness all mattered. Some people are drawn to this because it makes oral care feel older and more ritualized than toothbrush culture alone. Oil has weight and smoothness. It changes the sensation of the mouth. It demands patience. The practice slows a person down before the day begins. Ayurveda often works like this. It takes a neglected doorway and turns it into discipline. Ayurveda advises eating with attention before it became modern advice. Mindful eating may sound like a recent wellness phrase, but Ayurveda was already deeply concerned with the conditions surrounding a meal. It warned against eating while distracted, emotionally disturbed, rushed, or disconnected from hunger. This is not just politeness at the table. It is a theory of digestion. The body receives food differently when the mind is scattered. A person who eats in conflict may swallow tension along with the meal. A person who eats too quickly may miss the signals that guide sufficiency. Some people find this compelling because it exposes a very modern problem. The hand feeds the mouth while the mind lives somewhere else. Ayurveda would see that split as important. The meal is meant to be encountered. Smell, taste, chewing, appetite, and satisfaction are all part of the process. Attention is not decoration. It is participation. In this view, how food is eaten can change what food becomes. Lunch is often treated as the strongest meal. Ayurveda gives special importance to midday eating because it associates this period with stronger digestive capacity. The idea is simple and memorable. When the day is bright and active, the body may be better prepared to handle a substantial meal. This does not mean every person should eat the same lunch. It means timing has weight. Many people today eat lightly during the day, rush through work, and then place the largest meal at night when the body is preparing to slow down. Ayurveda questions that pattern. Some people find this fascinating because it reverses common habits without sounding exotic. The biggest meal is placed where the system can most fully meet it. There is a practical wisdom here. Eat when the body has power. Do not save the hardest work for the hour of decline. A meal is labor for the digestive system. Ayurveda asks us to assign that labor at the right time. Sleeping with rhythm matters as much as sleeping enough. Ayurveda is interested not only in how long a person sleeps, but in the pattern of sleep. This is important because rhythm teaches the body what to expect. A person who sleeps at wildly different times may create confusion even when the total hours look acceptable. Ayurveda valued regularity because the body works through cycles. Hunger, elimination, alertness, repair, and rest all respond to repeated timing. Some people find this idea surprisingly relevant because modern life often treats sleep like debt. Stay up now, pay it back later. Ayurveda is less convinced. It suggests that the hour of sleep matters, the state before sleep matters, and the consistency of the routine matters. Rest is not just unconsciousness. It is part of the daily relationship with nature. When that relationship becomes erratic, the body may still lie down, but it may not settle deeply. In this view, sleep is not an escape from order. It depends on order. Seasonal routine teaches that discipline must change with weather. Ayurveda does not treat discipline as rigid sameness. That is one of its most refreshing teachings. A routine that supports someone in winter may become too heavy in spring. A practice that feels cooling in summer may be unsuitable in cold weather. The body is not separate from the surrounding world. It responds to temperature, moisture, wind, light, and seasonal food. This means wisdom must adapt. Some people are fascinated by this because it challenges the modern fantasy of the perfect routine. Ayurveda says the best routine is not always the one repeated forever. It is the one that knows when to shift. Discipline becomes responsive rather than mechanical. The practitioner must observe the sky, the appetite, the skin, the energy, and the mood of the season. That can feel almost conspiratorial in the best late-night way. What if the weather is not background? What if it has been part of the prescription all along? Ritacharya makes climate a partner in self-knowledge. Ritacharya is the Ayurvedic teaching of seasonal conduct, and it asks people to live in conversation with climate. This is more than wearing a coat when it is cold. It means adjusting food, activity, sleep, cleansing, and strength building according to the season's qualities. A damp season may ask for one kind of response. A dry season may ask for another. A hot season may require restraint that would be unnecessary in colder months. Some people find this intriguing because it makes self-knowledge environmental. You do not understand yourself fully by looking inward alone. You must also ask what world your body is living inside. The same person may feel brilliant in autumn and heavy in spring. Another may become irritable in heat or anxious in wind. Ayurveda treats those patterns as meaningful rather than random. Climate becomes a mirror. The changing year reveals hidden tendencies that a person might never notice in a controlled room. Monsoon season receives special caution in classical Ayurvedic thinking. The rainy season held a special place in Ayurvedic seasonal advice because it was considered a time when digestion could become delicate and the environment more challenging. Moisture, cloud cover, unstable weather, and water quality all shaped the traditional concern. The body might feel weaker. Appetite might become less reliable. Foods that seemed fine in another season could feel heavier here. Ayurveda responded with caution, not panic. It advised careful eating, warm preparations, and attention to cleanliness. Some people find this fascinating because it shows ancient medicine thinking ecologically. Weather was not just scenery. It changed risk. It changed appetite. It changed the behavior of food and water. In a world before modern sanitation, this caution may have carried obvious survival value, but it also has symbolic depth. During unstable seasons, the person must become more observant. When the outer world is saturated and shifting, the inner world may need steadiness, warmth, and restraint. Summer calls for cooling restraint rather than aggressive effort. Summer is treated with respect in Ayurveda because heat can accumulate both outside and inside the person. The obvious response is not to push harder, prove toughness, or intensify everything. The traditional response is cooling restraint. Food may become lighter and more soothing. Activity may avoid the harshest heat. Strong anger, overwork, and excessive spice may be treated with caution. This makes summer advice feel almost moral. Do not add fire to fire. That phrase captures a core Ayurvedic logic without needing technical detail. Some people are intrigued by this because modern culture often rewards pushing through discomfort. Ayurveda asks whether that is wisdom or vanity. Heat has power. It can clarify, ripen, and energize. But it can also inflame and exhaust. The person who understands summer does not fight the season. They cooperate with it. Restraint is not weakness here. It is intelligent adaptation to a force larger than personal will. Winter can be a season for strength and nourishment. Winter is not treated only as a time of decline in Ayurveda. In many classical descriptions, colder weather can support stronger appetite and deeper nourishment when the person lives wisely. The body may pull inward. Digestive power may become more concentrated. Heavier foods, oiling practices, and strength-building routines may be more suitable for some people during this time. That makes winter surprisingly positive. It becomes a season for rebuilding. Some people find this idea exciting because it changes the mood around cold months. Instead of seeing winter only as something to endure, Ayurveda sees an opportunity. The outer cold may invite inner consolidation. The person can restore reserves, protect warmth, and cultivate steadiness. Yet the teaching still depends on suitability. Winter indulgence without awareness can become heaviness. The deeper point is not to eat endlessly or become inactive. It is to understand that nature sometimes offers conditions for repair that should not be wasted. Spring is often linked with lightening and renewed movement. Spring has a special drama in Ayurveda because it is the season where stored heaviness may begin to loosen. After the colder months, the body may carry more density, moisture, or sluggishness. As warmth returns, those qualities can shift. The traditional response is often to lighten the diet, increase movement, and avoid feeding the heaviness that is already trying to melt away. This makes spring feel like more than a pleasant change in weather. It becomes a physiological turning point. Some people find this fascinating because it explains why a person may feel both hopeful and dull at the same time. The world is waking up, but the body may be clearing old accumulation. Ayurveda treats that transition carefully. It does not ask for harshness. It asks for cooperation with the season's direction. The energy wants to move. The wise person helps it move without overwhelming the system. Renewal begins by removing what no longer fits. Ayurveda treats place as part of the prescription. Ayurveda does not imagine a person floating in empty space. Place matters. A dry region, a humid coast, a cold mountain, and a hot plain can influence the body in different ways. Local foods, water, altitude, wind, sunlight, and culture all become part of health. This is a striking idea because it challenges universal advice. A practice that works beautifully in one region may not fit another. A person may feel balanced in one climate and strangely unlike themselves somewhere else. Some people love this teaching because it makes the world feel alive with influence. The land is not a backdrop. It participates, Traditional healers had to consider where the person lived, what surrounded them, and what conditions shaped their daily life. In a speculative mood, this feels like geographic medicine. The body carries a conversation with its environment, whether we notice or not. Ayurveda simply insists that the conversation be heard. The same food may help one person and disturb another. This is one of Ayurveda's most useful warnings against simple answers. A food can be praised in one context and questioned in another. Yogurt may be strengthening for someone in the right situation and unsuitable for someone else at the wrong time. Raw salads may feel cleansing to one person and weakening to another. Spices may awaken one body and aggravate another. The tradition keeps returning to relationship. Food meets constitution, digestion, season, age, activity, and current imbalance. Some people find this liberating because it removes the pressure to copy someone else's diet. It also makes health advice more demanding. You cannot simply ask, "What is popular?" You must ask what actually happens after you eat. Ayurveda values the direct evidence. Does the meal bring clarity or heaviness? Does it satisfy or provoke craving? Does it support sleep or disturb it? The body gives feedback, and in this tradition, feedback is more important than ideology. Personalization sits at the center of Ayurvedic wisdom. Ayurveda becomes compelling because it refuses to treat human beings as identical cases. Two people may share the same complaint, but the reasons may differ. One may need warmth. Another may need cooling. One may need nourishment. Another may need lightness. One may need rest. Another may need movement. The goal is not novelty. The goal is fit. This is why observation is so important in the tradition. The healer studies patterns before offering guidance. What is the person's build? How do they digest? What is their temperament? What time of day worsens the issue? What season changes it? Some people hear this and think Ayurveda anticipated a form of personalized care long before the modern phrase existed. Of course, not every traditional claim should be accepted without examination, but the principle is hard to dismiss. A person is not an average. A person is a pattern. Advice becomes wiser when it meets the pattern in front of it. Pulse reading became one traditional way to study imbalance. Pulse reading is one of the practices that gives Ayurveda its mysterious reputation. A practitioner places fingers on the wrist and listens through touch, not with the ear, but with trained attention. The pulse may be described through qualities such as speed, strength, rhythm, depth, and movement. Traditional interpretations can become highly elaborate. Some people speak of sensing doshic patterns through the pulse, and this is where the subject begins to feel wonderfully strange. To a skeptical mind, it may raise many questions. To a curious mind, it reveals how much ancient traditions trusted refined perception. Before machines became the main symbols of diagnosis, the human hand was trained as an instrument. That does not mean every claim is automatically reliable. It means the practice belongs to a world where observation was cultivated intensely. The fascination is in the attent. Ayurveda asked how much could be known by touch when attention became disciplined enough to notice subtle change. Observation mattered before instruments became central to medicine. Ayurveda developed in a world where the healer could not rely on blood panels, scans, or digital readouts. That limitation created a different kind of intelligence. The physician had to look, listen, question, smell, touch, and compare. The patient's posture mattered. The voice mattered. The eyes mattered. The appetite mattered. Sleep, stool, sweat, complexion, and behavior could all become clues. This is fascinating because it shows medicine as close attention before technology. The body was read as a living document. Nothing was too ordinary to observe. Some people are drawn to this because modern life often outsources awareness. We wait for numbers while ignoring signals that have been speaking for months. Ayurveda does not reject measurement. It simply reminds us that perception itself can be trained. The healer's mind had to become organized enough to see patterns across small details. In that sense, ancient diagnosis was not primitive guessing. At its best, it was disciplined noticing. Ayurvedic physicians read the whole person before naming the illness. The Ayurvedic physician was expected to understand the whole presentation of a person. A weak voice could suggest one thing. A sharp voice could suggest another. Bright eyes, dull eyes, dry skin, oily skin, strong appetite, irregular appetite, restless habits, and slow habits, all added to the story. This was not casual curiosity. It was a method of pattern recognition. The fascinating part is that it turns ordinary human presence into evidence. The way someone speaks may reveal energy. The way they sit may reveal comfort or strain. The way they describe hunger may reveal more than a single symptom ever could. Some people find this almost cinematic. Imagine entering a room and being studied not as a checklist, but as an entire living pattern. The physician was not supposed to separate the complaint from the person carrying it. In Ayurveda, the visible life gives clues about the hidden life. The surface is not superficial and someone knows how to read it. Charaka described the ideal healer as skilled and compassionate. Ancient Ayurveda did not imagine medicine as a cold transfer of techniques. The healer's character mattered because the patient was vulnerable, and vulnerability can be mishandled by careless people. Charaka's tradition valued knowledge, memory, practical ability, cleanliness, presence, and humane conduct. That combination is fascinating because it makes healing partly ethical before it is technical. A physician could know formulas and still fail the deeper test if greed, arrogance, or indifference entered the room. Some people love this because it challenges the fantasy that expertise alone is enough. In this view, a healer is not merely someone who knows what to give. A healer is someone who can be trusted near suffering. That makes the medical encounter feel almost sacred, but not in a vague way. It is sacred because power must be disciplined. Ayurveda understood that treatment happens between human beings, and the quality of that relationship can change what the patient is able to receive. The patient was expected to participate in their own recovery. Ayurveda places responsibility in an interesting place. The healer may diagnose, advise, prepare medicine, and guide the process, but the patient must live the instruction. This makes recovery a partnership rather than a performance done by someone else. A person might be told to adjust food, sleep, routine, conduct, effort, or emotional habits. None of that can be outsourced. Some people find this idea confronting because it removes the fantasy of passive healing. Ayurveda does not simply ask what can be taken. It asks what must be practiced. That does not mean blame should be placed on someone who is unwell. It means the tradition recognizes that daily life keeps entering the treatment. A remedy given in the morning can be undermined by choices repeated at night. In a late-night conversation, this begins to sound like a hidden law. The medicine is not only in the bottle, it is also in the way the day is lived. Medicine was never separated from conduct, diet, and thought. Ayurveda becomes truly strange to modern ears when it refuses to divide life into separate boxes. A person's symptoms were not viewed apart from the way they ate, behaved, desired, rested, spoke, and reacted. the mind was not treated as an unrelated cloud floating above the body. Conduct mattered because repeated behavior leaves marks. Diet mattered because food becomes part of the person. Thought mattered because attention and emotion can alter the inner climate. Some people find this deeply compelling because it sounds less like a treatment system and more like an anthropology of human consequence. Nothing is isolated for long. The insult swallowed at work may shape appetite. The meal eaten in anger may feel different from the same meal eaten calmly. The habit hidden from others may still be known by the body. Ayurveda's claim is not that every problem has one simple cause. It is that life is woven tightly, and healing must respect the weave. Ayurveda connects self-control with long-term vitality. Self-control in Ayurveda is not presented as grim punishment. It is closer to intelligent conservation. The tradition asks people to notice where energy leaks away through excess, impulse, overwork, irregularity, and unexamined desire. That makes restraint a kind of protection. Not the denial of life, but the refusal to spend oneself foolishly. Some people are drawn to this because it sounds like ancient wisdom for a burnt-out age. Modern culture often celebrates intensity until the person becomes exhausted. Ayurveda asks a quieter question: what can be sustained? The body has resources, but they are not infinite. Appetite, speech, sexuality, ambition, anger, and stimulation all require discernment. Used wisely, they serve life. Used blindly, they scatter strength. In this sense, vitality is not only something gained from food or herbs. It is also something preserved by wisdom. The person who can pause before excess may be protecting tomorrow's clarity before it disappears. Mental qualities were described through sattva, rajas, and tamas. Ayurveda borrowed a powerful psychological language from Indian philosophy to describe the mind's changing condition. Sattva, rajas, and tamas are not personality labels in the shallow sense. They are qualities that can rise and fall within a person. One moment may be clear and balanced. Another may be driven and agitated. Another may be dull and resistant. This is fascinating because it offers a map of consciousness that feels both ancient and immediately recognizable. Anyone can notice the difference between a calm morning, a frantic afternoon, and a heavy evening. The tradition gives those shifts names. Some people find this especially interesting because it suggests the mind has weather. It is not always the true self speaking with perfect authority. Sometimes it is colored by restlessness. Sometimes it is covered by inertia. Sometimes it becomes lucid enough to see clearly. Ayurveda's practical question is direct. What is the mind being fed, and what quality is growing there? Sattva points toward clarity, steadiness, and wise perception. Sattva is the quality Ayurveda most closely links with mental balance. It is not excitement. It is not sleepy calm. It is a clear state where the mind can perceive without being dragged around by craving or confusion. In daily life, this might appear as patience, sound judgment, honesty, contentment, and the ability to choose wisely under pressure. The fascinating part is that sattva is treated as something that can be cultivated. Food, company, speech, study, sleep, and moral conduct can all support or disturb it. Some people hear this and recognize a hidden discipline behind peace. Clarity is not an accident. It is built by what a person repeatedly allows into their inner life. Ayurveda also suggests that perception becomes more trustworthy when sattva is strong. That is a powerful claim. The mind does not simply observe reality. It may distort reality according to its own condition. To improve perception, one must refine the perceiver. Rajas describes restlessness, ambition, irritation, and constant motion. Rajas is the quality of drive, movement, hunger, and outward push. Without it, little would get done. A person needs initiative to work, speak, build, compete, protect, and pursue goals. Ayurveda does not treat this force as evil. It treats it as unstable when it dominates. Too much rajas can make the mind chase the next thing before the present thing is complete. It can turn ambition into agitation and conviction into argument. That is why this concept feels so relevant now. Endless scrolling, constant comparison, productivity pressure, and emotional reactivity all have a rajasic flavor. Some people find the idea almost eerie because it names the pulse of modern life in ancient terms. The restless mind believes it is free because it is always moving. Ayurveda asks whether that movement is chosen or compelled. Rajas can carry a person forward, but without guidance, it can become a wheel that never stops turning. Tamas names heaviness, dullness, confusion, and resistance to change. Tamas is the quality of inertia. It can appear as sleep, stability, and necessary grounding, but it becomes a problem when it thickens into avoidance. Ayurveda uses this idea to explain states where the mind feels clouded and the will becomes weak. A person may know what should be done and still remain stuck. That makes tamas psychologically fascinating. It is not simply laziness in a moralistic sense. It is a condition where energy has lost brightness and direction. Some people are drawn to this teaching because it speaks to the strange experience of being trapped by one's own heaviness. Too much tamas may show up through oversleeping, denial, compulsive comfort, or refusal to face reality. Yet the same quality in proper measure allows rest and form. Ayurveda keeps the balance. Darkness is not always the enemy, but when it rules the mind, perception narrows. The path forward begins by introducing movement, lightness, and honest attention. Meditation supports Ayurveda by quieting the forces that disturb judgment. Meditation enters Ayurveda as a way of stabilizing the inner instrument that makes choices. A person can know the correct advice and still fail to follow it when the mind is agitated, clouded, or pulled by craving. This is why mental discipline matters. The tradition does not only ask the body to digest food, it asks the mind to digest experience. Meditation helps create a pause between impulse and action. That pause can change a life. Some people find this idea fascinating because it makes meditation less like escape and more like practical medicine for decision-making. When the mind is noisy, even simple guidance can be twisted. Hunger becomes craving. Tiredness becomes irritability. Fear becomes certainty. Stillness gives the person a chance to see what is actually happening before reacting. Ayurveda values that gap. In that small space, the patient becomes less mechanical. Choice returns. Healing becomes possible because awareness is no longer completely ruled by habit. Yoga and Ayurveda became sister disciplines with different purposes. Yoga and Ayurveda are often mentioned together, but they are not the same thing. Yoga is primarily concerned with liberation, discipline, attention, and the transformation of consciousness. Ayurveda is concerned with life, health, balance, and the wise care of the embodied person. Their closeness is fascinating because they meet at the human being from different directions. One asks how awareness can become free. The other asks how the body and mind can remain fit for a meaningful life. Some people enjoy this distinction because it stops the traditions from being blended into a vague wellness soup. Yoga without care for the body can become harsh. Ayurveda without inner discipline can become mere lifestyle management. Together, they suggest a larger vision. The body is not the final identity, but it is still a sacred responsibility. The mind is not perfectly reliable, but it can be trained. A human life needs both grounding and awakening. Yoga trains awareness, while Ayurveda trains daily balance. The relationship between these traditions becomes clearer when we see their different emphases. Yoga asks the practitioner to observe thought, restrain distraction, deepen concentration, and move toward freedom from false identification. Ayurveda asks the practitioner to study food, sleep, digestion, season, constitution, and daily rhythm. One looks strongly toward the inner witness. The other looks strongly toward the patterns that keep embodied life stable. This is why they fit together so naturally. A person may meditate beautifully but damage themselves through irregular living. Another may eat carefully but never examine the mind that keeps creating suffering. Some people find this pairing powerful because it suggests that wisdom has to descend into routine. Insight is not complete if the day remains chaotic. Health is not complete if awareness remains asleep. These traditions meet in the ordinary moment. How one breathes, how one eats, how one reacts, how one rests. The path is not somewhere else. It is being practiced through the body now. Breath practices were valued because life begins with movement. Breath is one of the most obvious mysteries in the body. It happens by itself, yet it can also be guided. It responds to fear, effort, grief, sleep, attention, and speech. Ayurveda, alongside related Indian traditions, understood that breath reveals the state of the person. A shallow breath tells one story. A steady breath tells another. A held breath tells yet another. This makes breath practices compelling because they sit at the border between automatic life and conscious influence. Some people find this almost uncanny. The breath is ordinary enough to ignore, yet powerful enough to shift the nervous system, voice, posture, and mood. Ayurveda's interest in movement makes breath especially important because it is movement that never stops while life remains. Every inhale receives the world. Every exhale releases something back. Without needing to make exaggerated claims, the basic fact is stunning. The simplest sign of life is also one of the most accessible doors into self-regulation. Rasayana traditions explored rejuvenation through discipline and nourishment. Rasayana is often translated as rejuvenation, but that word can be misleading if it sounds like a promise of magical youth. The deeper idea is more interesting. It points toward rebuilding vitality, supporting resilience, improving quality of tissues, and extending the usefulness of life. Traditional Rasayana was not only a pill or herb. It could include diet, rest, conduct, seasonal timing, mental steadiness, and carefully chosen preparations. Some people are fascinated by this because it feels like an ancient longevity science wrapped in ritual and discipline. It asks why some people age with brightness while others decline early. It asks what must be protected before vitality is lost. The out there crowd may wonder whether these practices preserved forgotten knowledge about human renewal. The grounded answer is still compelling. Ayurveda understood that repair requires conditions. You cannot exhaust the body constantly and then demand restoration from a single substance. Rejuvenation begins by creating a life that allows rebuilding. Rejuvenation meant more than youth. It meant usable vitality. Ayurveda's idea of rejuvenation is not the modern obsession with looking younger at any cost. It is more practical and more profound. The question is not merely how to appear fresh. The question is, how to remain capable, clear, strong, and steady enough to fulfill life's purposes. Usable vitality means energy that can serve wisdom. It means the body supports action without constant collapse. It means the mind stays available for learning and discernment. Some people find this view refreshing because it turns longevity into responsibility rather than vanity. A longer life is not automatically better if it is filled with confusion, indulgence, and decay of purpose. Rasayana thinking asks what kind of life is being extended. That question feels ancient and urgent at the same time. The goal is not to freeze time. The goal is to preserve the capacity to live well within time. Rejuvenation becomes the art of keeping life meaningful, not merely prolonged. Ojas describes deep resilience built through rest and good living. Ojas is one of Ayurveda's most captivating concepts because it names a subtle form of strength. It is often associated with immunity, vitality, stability, radiance, and the deep reserve that allows a person to endure. This is not the same as adrenaline or excitement. It is quieter and more foundational. Someone with strong ojas may appear calm under stress, recover well, sleep deeply, and carry a sense of grounded presence. The tradition teaches that ojas is built through nourishing food, proper digestion, good sleep, moderation, affection, and a life not constantly drained by excess. Some people love this idea because it describes a kind of energy modern language often misses. A person can be stimulated and still depleted, busy and still fragile, impressive and still running on fumes. Ojas points towards stored strength rather than borrowed intensity. In a world addicted to quick boosts, Ayurveda asks a deeper question. What kind of vitality remains when the stimulation fades? Exhaustion was treated as a warning, not a moral failure. Ayurveda offers a compassionate way to view depletion. When a person is exhausted, the tradition does not need to interpret it as weakness of character. It may be a sign that resources have been spent faster than they were restored. That difference matters. Exhaustion carries information. It may point to overwork, poor sleep, inadequate nourishment, emotional strain, excessive stimulation, or recovery that was never completed. Some people find this deeply relieving because modern culture often glorifies pushing past limits. Ayurveda asks whether pushing past limits is sometimes just ignorance wearing a heroic mask. The body has boundaries. When those boundaries are ignored, symptoms may become the only language left. Fatigue is not always an enemy to conquer. Sometimes it is a messenger trying to prevent deeper collapse. This does not mean surrendering to every tired feeling. It means learning to distinguish laziness from depletion. Ayurveda's wisdom here is simple and powerful. Do not insult the alarm because you dislike its sound. Ayurveda links immunity with digestion, sleep, and emotional steadiness. Ayurveda's view of resilience is broad. It does not reduce protection to one isolated factor. The body's ability to withstand disturbance depends on how well it is nourished, how deeply it rests, how steadily it processes life, and how much strain it carries. This makes immunity feel less like a shield bought from outside and more like a condition cultivated from within. Some people find this fascinating because it connects ordinary habits with deep defense. A person may search for rare substances while ignoring the basics that shape resilience every day. Poor sleep weakens judgment. Poor digestion reduces nourishment. Chronic emotional turbulence drains energy. Ayurveda places these pieces in one picture. It does not claim that good habits make someone invincible. That would be foolish. But it does suggest that resistance is built through patterns. The person becomes more resilient, not through one dramatic intervention, but through a life that repeatedly teaches the body safety, repair, and strength. Herbs were understood by taste, energy, and after effect. Ayurvedic herbal knowledge is more layered than simply saying one plant is good for one symptom. A substance could be assessed through its taste, its heating or cooling influence, its effect after digestion, its specific action, and its suitability for the person. This creates a surprisingly detailed grammar. Ginger and licorice may both be plants, but they do not speak the same language in the body. A bitter herb may clear one kind of condition while aggravating someone who is already too dry or depleted. Some people find this fascinating because it sounds like botany mixed with philosophy. The plant is not treated as an inert chemical object alone. It has character, direction, and relationship. That does not remove the need for modern safety testing. It simply reveals the sophistication of the old model. Ayurveda tried to understand how a substance behaves from first contact to final result. The herb was not only named, it was followed through the body's story. Turmeric became famous because food and medicine often overlapped. Turmeric is one of the clearest examples of how Ayurveda blurs the line between kitchen and clinic. It sits in ordinary cooking, yet it also appears in traditional healing contexts. That alone makes it fascinating. A bright yellow spice can become daily flavor, household remedy, ritual substance, and symbol of auspiciousness. The modern world often separates medicine into the cabinet and food into the pantry. Ayurveda was never so neat. It asked whether common ingredients could shape health when used consistently and wisely. Some people are drawn to turmeric because it feels like a clue hidden in plain sight. What else has been sitting in the kitchen with a deeper history than we realized? Of course, popularity can lead to exaggeration, and not every claim deserves belief. But the larger lesson remains powerful. In Ayurveda, healing is not always rare or remote. Sometimes it begins with familiar substances used with knowledge, timing, and respect for the person receiving them. Ashwagandha is traditionally valued for strength under stress. Ashwagandha has become famous in modern wellness circles, but its traditional reputation is older and more interesting. It is often associated with strength, restoration, steadiness, and support during periods of strain. The name itself is memorable because it has been linked with the smell and power of a horse in traditional interpretation. That earthy association tells us something. This was not imagined as a delicate plant for decoration. It was valued as a builder. Some people are fascinated by ashwagandha because it seems to belong to the category of substances that do not simply stimulate. They are thought to help the system endure. That distinction matters. A stimulant may push a tired person harder. A restorative is meant to help rebuild what stress has consumed. Modern discussion can become inflated, and personal safety still matters. Yet the traditional idea remains compelling. Strength is not only muscular. It is the capacity to remain steady when life keeps applying pressure. Triphala combines 3 fruits in a famous digestive formula. Triphala is one of Ayurveda's most recognizable formulas, and its name simply points to 3 fruits. The formula traditionally combines amalaki, haritaki, and bibitaki. What makes it fascinating is how famous it became without being exotic in the dramatic sense. It is often associated with digestion, elimination, and gentle support for regularity. But its reputation goes beyond the bathroom. In Ayurvedic thought, proper elimination is part of clarity and balance. What leaves the body matters. What remains too long may influence comfort, appetite, and energy. Some people are intrigued by Triphala because it shows the importance of formulation. Ayurveda often values combinations because ingredients can balance one another. One fruit may bring one quality. Another may modify it. The formula becomes more than a pile of parts. It becomes an intentional relationship. Whether someone uses it or merely studies it, Triphala reveals a central Ayurvedic habit. Look for synergy. The blend may matter as much as the ingredient. Brahmi is associated with memory, learning, and calm attention. Brahmi carries an almost legendary reputation in Ayurveda as a support for the mind. It has been linked with study, recall, concentration, and a calmer quality of awareness. That makes it especially fascinating in a world obsessed with focus. Modern people often try to force attention through pressure, caffeine, alarms, and digital discipline. Ayurveda imagined another path. Support the mind by reducing disturbance and nourishing its capacity to remain present. Brahmi became part of that conversation. Some people are drawn to it because it sounds like an ancient nootropic, a plant associated not with raw stimulation but with steadier cognition. The tradition's interest in memory is also spiritually meaningful. Memory is not only storing information. It is continuity of self, learning from experience, and remembering what matters when temptation appears. Of course, every herb must be approached with care and context. Still, the idea is captivating. A small plant becomes connected with the human longing to think clearly and live wisely. Neem became known for bitterness and traditional skin support. Neem has a reputation that is hard to separate from its intense bitterness. In Ayurveda, that bitterness is part of its identity. It has been associated with cleansing, cooling, and support for skin concerns in traditional practice. What makes neem compelling is the way a tree became a household presence across parts of India. Leaves, twigs, oil, and preparations were used in different ways. The story is not just medical. It is cultural. A plant could stand near the home and enter daily life through hygiene, ritual, and seasonal care. Some people find neem fascinating because it feels like a living pharmacy with roots in village knowledge. It also reminds us that bitterness was not avoided simply because it was unpleasant. Ayurveda often respected what modern taste might reject. Neem's power in the imagination comes from that sharp refusal to be sweet. It tastes like correction. It carries the message that healing is not always designed to flatter desire. Ghee was respected as food, carrier, and nourishing substance. Ghee holds a special place in Ayurveda because it is more than clarified butter in a jar. Traditionally, it was valued as nourishment, cooking medium, ritual substance, and carrier for herbs. That last role is especially interesting. Ayurveda often used fats to deliver certain preparations because they were believed to carry qualities deeply into the body. Ghee also has a strong cultural presence. It appears in kitchens, offerings, lamps, and stories of care. Some people find this fascinating because it overturns the simplistic fear of fat that shaped parts of modern diet culture. Ayurveda did not treat all richness as dangerous. It asked who needed it, how much was suitable, and whether digestion could handle it. For a dry, depleted, or weakened person, ghee could represent softness and rebuilding. For someone already heavy or congested, it might require caution. The lesson is not that GI is universally good. The lesson is that nourishment must meet the actual condition. Honey was used carefully because heating it was discouraged. Ayurveda's caution around honey is one of those details that instantly catches attention. Honey was respected, but it was not treated casually. Traditional texts warned against heating it, and many practitioners still repeat that rule. Whether modern science agrees with every classical explanation is a separate question. The fascinating part is the mindset. Ayurveda did not only ask what a substance is. It asked what happens when that substance is altered. Raw, warmed, cooked, mixed, aged, diluted, or taken at the wrong time could change the story. Honey was also considered scraping or lightening in certain contexts, which made it different from simple sweetness. Some people love this because it reveals an almost alchemical sensitivity to preparation. The kitchen becomes a laboratory of transformation. Heat is not neutral. Mixing is not neutral. Method matters. In Ayurveda, a respected substance can become unsuitable when handled unwisely. That gives every remedy a hidden condition. Use is inseparable from preparation. Milk was never one simple category in classical thought. Milk in Ayurveda is not treated as a single idea with one universal meaning. The tradition paid attention to the animal, freshness, preparation, combination, season, time of intake, and the condition of the person drinking it. Cow's milk, goat's milk, warmed milk, spiced milk, and milk taken with incompatible foods could all be discussed differently. That is fascinating, because modern arguments often flatten milk into yes or no. Ayurveda asks a more complicated question. What kind of milk? Prepared how? Taken when? By whom? And with what effect? Some people find this approach refreshing because it refuses simplistic food ideology. A substance can nourish in one setting and disturb in another. It can support strength when digestion is ready and become heavy when the system is weak. The deeper teaching is bigger than milk. Categories can deceive us. The body does not respond to slogans. It responds to qualities, context, and timing. Spices help make food more digestible and personally suitable. Spices in Ayurveda are not only added for flavor, they help shape the behavior of a meal. A heavy dish may become easier to handle when warmed with the right spices. A cooling food may be balanced by a pungent addition. A bland preparation may gain life through aroma and stimulation. This makes the spice box feel like a small medical toolkit. Cooks were not merely making food enjoyable, they were adjusting qualities. Some people find this fascinating because it gives traditional cuisine a hidden intelligence. The recipe is not accidental. It may reflect climate, digestion, season, and the needs of people who lived with those foods for generations. A pinch can change the direction of a meal. Too much can overwhelm it. Ayurveda sees that subtlety. The kitchen becomes a place where care is measured by attention. The cook asks not only what tastes good, but what will help this food become welcome inside the body. Ginger became a household example of warming digestive support. Ginger is one of the easiest Ayurvedic examples to understand because its action can be felt quickly. It is warm, sharp, aromatic, and awakening. A small piece before food, a tea in cold weather, or a spice in cooking can change the whole experience of eating. Ayurveda traditionally values ginger for kindling appetite and helping sluggish digestion, especially when coldness or heaviness is present. Some people are fascinated by it because it shows how powerful common things can be. The remedy does not always arrive as a rare treasure from a hidden mountain. Sometimes it is a root on the kitchen counter. Ginger also teaches caution. The same heat that helps one person may be too much for someone already overheated or irritated. This is classic Ayurveda. No substance escapes context. Still, ginger's reputation makes sense even to a beginner. It feels like movement in plant form. It enters the body and announces that something has begun. Cumin, coriander, and fennel formed a gentle digestive trio. This famous combination shows Ayurveda's love of balance through blending. Cumin brings warmth and an earthy digestive character. Coriander is often considered gentler and more cooling. Fennel adds sweetness, aroma, and a soothing quality after meals. Together, they create a preparation that many people find accessible. The trio can appear as tea, spice mix, or cooking support. What makes it fascinating is the logic of moderation. Not every digestive aid has to be fiery or aggressive. Sometimes the best support is balanced enough to help without provoking. Some people see this blend as a small example of Ayurvedic intelligence. One ingredient pushes too much in one direction, so another rounds it out. A third adds comfort. The formula becomes a conversation among qualities. It also reveals how traditional knowledge can hide inside simple hospitality. A warm cup after eating may seem ordinary. Behind it stands an old idea. Digestion deserves help that is wise, measured, and kind. Ayurveda studies incompatibility between foods as carefully as nutrition. Ayurveda's concept of incompatible foods is one of its most provocative teachings. It suggests that the trouble may not lie in a single ingredient, but in the relationship between ingredients. A food can be wholesome in one setting and questionable in another combination. The tradition discusses mixtures that may confuse digestion, increase heaviness, or create unwanted effects over time. This is where Ayurveda starts sounding almost like culinary conspiracy theory in the best possible way. What if the secret problem is not what you ate, but what you paired it with? What if the body reads combinations differently than labels suggest? Some people find this idea fascinating because it adds a hidden layer to eating. The meal becomes a code. Timing, temperature, proportion, and pairing all influence the message. Modern readers may debate individual rules, and that is fair. Yet the broader insight is hard to ignore. Relationship changes outcome. Even on the plate, context can transform meaning. Fresh food is valued because vitality declines with time. Ayurveda gives freshness a kind of seriousness that goes beyond taste. Food is not viewed as a dead object with the same value forever. Once prepared, it begins to change. Heat fades. Moisture shifts. Aroma weakens. The living quality that made the meal feel alert and suitable begins to decline. This is why freshly cooked food carries such importance in the tradition. It is not only about avoiding spoilage. It is about receiving food when it still feels alive to the senses and friendly to digestion. Some people find this strangely powerful because modern life is built on storage. We freeze, package, preserve, reheat, and delay. Ayurveda asks what is lost when convenience becomes the main teacher. A meal made with attention and eaten at the right time may carry a different message than something forgotten and revived later. The idea is simple, but it changes how the kitchen feels. Food is not just material. It is a moment. Leftovers were treated with more caution than modern convenience allows. Ayurveda's suspicion of leftovers can sound inconvenient, but it comes from a clear logic. Food that has been cooked, stored, cooled, and reheated is not the same event it once was. Its texture changes. Its moisture changes. Its smell may change. Its relationship with digestion may change as well. Modern people often see leftovers as practical and harmless when handled safely. Ayurveda asks a different question. Even when food is not spoiled, has its liveliness declined? This is where the tradition becomes provocative. It suggests that the body may respond not only to ingredients, but to the history of the meal. Some people love this idea because it turns the refrigerator into a philosophical problem. What are we really eating when we eat yesterday's energy? The point is not to frighten people away from practical life. It is to notice that freshness has value. Convenience may save time, but it may also change the quality of nourishment. Eating before the previous meal digests was strongly discouraged. This teaching is one of Ayurveda's most practical warnings. The tradition believed that digestion should complete one task before being handed another. If a person keeps adding food too soon, the body may struggle to process everything cleanly. This turns snacking into a serious question rather than a harmless habit. Are you truly hungry, or are you restless? Is the stomach ready, or is the mind looking for sensation? Ayurveda does not treat appetite as background noise. It asks people to recognize the difference between need and impulse. Some people find this fascinating because it challenges the modern rhythm of constant grazing. A bite here, a drink there, a sweet thing between meetings, a late-night taste without hunger. The body may never receive a clear interval. In Ayurvedic thinking, the space between meals matters because transformation needs time. The pause is part of the meal's completion. Without completion, even good food may become a burden. Appetite was considered a sign worth respecting. Ayurveda pays careful attention to hunger because appetite is a message from the body's readiness. It is not treated as an enemy to suppress or a craving to obey blindly. It is a signal that must be interpreted. Clear hunger can suggest that the digestive system is prepared for food. Weak hunger may suggest that the body is still occupied. Irregular hunger may point to disturbance. Excessive hunger may have its own story. This makes appetite more interesting than simple desire. Some people find the idea refreshing because modern advice often becomes disconnected from bodily experience. Eat by the clock. Avoid hunger. Chase fullness. Follow the plan. Ayurveda asks for more direct listening. What kind of hunger is present? Does it feel clean, sharp, emotional, dull, or confused? The body speaks in different tones. Respecting appetite does not mean surrendering to every urge. It means treating hunger as evidence. Before food enters, the body has already started the conversation. Thirst and hunger were not meant to be ignored casually. Ayurveda took natural signals seriously because they were seen as part of the body's intelligence. Hunger and thirst are not random interruptions in an otherwise efficient day. They show that the organism is asking for something. To ignore them repeatedly is to train oneself away from inner guidance. This is fascinating because modern life often rewards that disconnection. People delay meals through pressure. They forget water during work. They override bodily needs because productivity demands obedience. Ayurveda sees danger in that pattern. Not because every sensation is sacred and perfect, but because repeated neglect dulls communication. Some people find this idea almost rebellious. The body may be wiser than the schedule. It may announce needs before the mind has permission to care. The tradition asks for discernment rather than indulgence. Drink when thirst is genuine. Eat when hunger is ready. Do not treat the basic signals of life as background noise. The body is not a machine that should beg to be heard. Natural urges were seen as messages from bodily intelligence. Ayurveda gave major importance to bodily urges that modern people often treat as embarrassing interruptions. The need to eliminate, sneeze, yawn, sleep, cry, drink, eat, or release gas could all carry significance. These urges were not considered meaningless accidents. They were part of the organism's attempt to regulate itself. That is a striking view because it dignifies processes that polite society often hides or suppresses. Some people find this fascinating because it suggests the body is constantly trying to maintain order without needing conscious instruction. A sneeze clears. A yawn shifts state. Tears discharge emotion. Sleep restores. Elimination removes what should not remain. Ayurveda's warning is not that every urge must be followed instantly in every situation. Life requires judgment. But it does suggest that chronic suppression can create disturbance. The body speaks through pressure, impulse, and release. To live wisely is not to obey every signal blindly. It is to stop pretending the signals mean nothing. Suppressing urges was believed to disturb inner order. One of Ayurveda's more startling teachings is its warning against repeatedly holding back natural bodily impulses. The tradition described many problems that could arise when urges were forced down again and again. The exact classical lists can feel unusual to modern readers, but the core idea is easy to understand. A body that tries to release pressure should not be endlessly commanded to keep it inside. Anyone who has delayed urination, swallowed tears, held back a cough, or resisted sleep knows that suppression has a cost. Some people find this idea compelling because it connects physical restraint with a wider pattern of self-denial. How often do people ignore the body to appear disciplined, polite, strong, or convenient? Ayurveda asks whether that is always wise. Inner order depends on timely release as much as timely nourishment. The body is not only built by what it receives, it is also protected by what it is allowed to let go. Panchakarma became known as Ayurveda's intensive cleansing tradition. Panchakarma is one of the most famous and dramatic parts of Ayurveda. The name means 5 actions, and it refers to a group of cleansing methods used in classical practice under trained supervision. What makes it fascinating is the scale of the idea. Ayurveda did not always imagine healing as adding more substances. Sometimes it imagined healing as removing what no longer belonged. Before the main procedures, the person might be prepared through oiling, sweating, dietary changes, and careful assessment. This gives Panchakarma a ritual intensity. It is not a casual weekend detox in the modern marketing sense. It is a structured process built around timing, suitability, and aftercare. Some people are drawn to it because it sounds like a reset button from the ancient world. The grounded view is more careful. Such practices can be demanding and are not right for everyone. Still, the philosophy is gripping. Restoration may begin when the body is helped to clear its burden. Classical cleansing required preparation, supervision, and careful timing. Ayurveda did not treat deep cleansing as something to attempt casually after reading a quick instruction. Classical methods required the right patient, the right season, the right strength, and the right sequence. Preparation mattered because the body had to be made ready. Supervision mattered because strong interventions can create risk. Timing mattered because a procedure done at the wrong moment might harm rather than help. This is an important lesson, especially now that cleansing has become a fashionable word. Some people are fascinated by the ancient drama of purification, but Ayurveda's own tradition was more disciplined than many modern versions. It did not say that more cleansing is always better. It did not say that intensity proves wisdom. It asked whether the person could tolerate what was being done. That caution is part of the intelligence. True cleansing was not a punishment for having a body. It was a precise intervention, surrounded by respect for limits. Not every Ayurvedic practice was meant for everyone. This may be one of the most important safeguards in the whole tradition. Ayurveda contains strong herbs, rich foods, fasting methods, oils, cleansing procedures, breath practices, and seasonal rules. But it does not present every tool as universally suitable. A practice may be excellent for one person and disruptive for another. This makes Ayurveda more demanding than simple wellness advice. It asks the practitioner to understand context before copying a method. Some people miss this point because they collect practices like souvenirs. They hear that something is ancient and assume it must be safe for all. Ayurveda itself is more careful. It asks about age, strength, constitution, illness, climate, digestion, pregnancy, medication, and present imbalance. The fascination lies in the refusal to flatten human difference. In this system, wisdom is not proven by doing everything. Wisdom is shown by knowing what to leave alone. The right practice at the wrong time is not wisdom. It is poor timing wearing sacred clothing. Safety matters because traditional substances still need modern testing. Ayurveda can be deeply fascinating without pretending that every traditional preparation is automatically safe. This matters because plants, minerals, metals, oils, and concentrated extracts can have real biological effects. A substance with real effects can also have real risks. Modern testing becomes important for purity, dosage, contamination, interaction, and quality control. This does not insult the tradition. It protects the people who are interested in it. Some people enjoy alternative ideas because they challenge mainstream assumptions, but wise curiosity still needs caution. Ancient does not always mean harmless. Natural does not always mean gentle. Powerful does not always mean appropriate. Ayurveda itself valued suitability and careful preparation, so modern safety concerns can be seen as a continuation of that seriousness. The unknown should invite attention rather than blind faith. A responsible approach allows the mystery to remain interesting while keeping people protected. Wonder and caution do not have to be enemies. In real medicine, they often belong together. Some mineral preparations require expert knowledge and strong caution. Ayurveda includes a later tradition of mineral and metallic preparations that can sound astonishing to modern listeners. These substances were not meant to be treated like ordinary kitchen herbs. Traditional systems described elaborate purification and processing methods before use. The purpose was to transform risky materials into something considered therapeutically suitable. That claim is exactly why caution matters. If preparation, purity, or testing is poor, danger can become very real. Some people are fascinated by this area because it sounds almost alchemical. Metals, fire, grinding, washing, repeated heating, and secretive lineages all appear in the imagination. But the responsible message is clear. This is not a field for casual experimentation. It belongs to qualified experts and modern quality testing. The fact that an idea is ancient and mysterious does not remove the need for evidence and safety. Ayurveda's more mature lesson is not reckless trust. It is respect for power. The stronger the substance, the greater the responsibility. Responsible Ayurveda works best beside qualified medical care. Ayurveda is most useful when it is approached with maturity rather than opposition for its own sake. Many people are drawn to it because they feel that modern healthcare can be rushed, impersonal, or overly focused on late-stage problems. That frustration is understandable. But rejecting qualified medical care completely can be dangerous, especially with serious symptoms. A wiser path allows different kinds of knowledge to speak where they are strongest. Modern medicine can be essential for diagnosis, emergency care, surgery, infection, medication, and monitoring. Ayurveda can offer a rich language for routine, digestion, constitution, food, rest, and long-term self-observation. Some people want a battle between ancient wisdom and modern science. The more interesting story is a conversation. The body does not care about ideological teams. It cares about being understood and protected. Responsible integration asks what helps, what is safe, and what can be verified. The goal is not to win an argument. The goal is to serve life. Ancient texts included ethics for healers and warnings against greed. Ayurvedic literature did not only describe medicines and procedures, it also addressed the character of those who practiced healing. Greed was treated as a danger because suffering creates opportunity for exploitation. A desperate patient may believe almost anything if hope is sold with confidence. That problem is not ancient at all. It is painfully modern. This makes the old ethical warnings feel sharp. A healer must not use knowledge as a trap. Skill should be joined with restraint, honesty, and responsibility. Some people find this fascinating because it shows that medical corruption was understood long before today's debates. The tradition knew that the person offering treatment holds power. That power can heal, but it can also manipulate. Ayurveda's ethical voice reminds us that the marketplace of wellness has always needed moral boundaries. Not every impressive claim deserves trust. Not every confident practitioner deserves authority. The true healer is measured not only by what they know, but by what they refuse to exploit. Sushruta is remembered for detailed surgery and anatomical curiosity. Sushruta's legacy has an almost legendary force because it challenges lazy assumptions about ancient medicine. His tradition contains discussions of instruments, wounds, fractures, procedures, training, and anatomy. The fascination is not that the ancient world had modern surgery. It did not. The fascination is that it pursued careful intervention with the tools, knowledge, and worldview available at the time. Surgical curiosity requires courage of a particular kind. It means looking directly at the body and asking how structure works. It means studying injury rather than turning away. Some people are amazed by this because Ayurveda is often imagined only as herbs, oils, and lifestyle advice. Sushruta reveals another face. There was cutting, stitching, probing, setting, and repairing. There was practical engagement with flesh and form. That does not mean every ancient method should be copied today. It means the tradition was broader and more technically ambitious than many people realize. The past was not as simple as we were told. Students studied anatomy through disciplined observation and practical training. Classical medical learning demanded more than memorizing verses. Students had to train perception and technique. Anatomy was approached through direct study, careful description, and repeated practice. Some accounts describe methods that may feel startling now, but they reveal a serious educational purpose. The learner had to understand layers, channels, organs, tissues, and vulnerable points. This changes the image of the ancient student. He was not merely sitting beneath a tree absorbing mystical sayings. He was being prepared for responsibility. Hands had to become steady. Eyes had to become accurate. Judgment had to become patient. Some people find this compelling because it restores the physical reality of learning. Knowledge was carried in the body of the practitioner. The memory of touch, resistance, depth, and pressure mattered. A text could guide the mind, but practice shaped the hand. Ayurveda's medical world was therefore not only philosophical, it was also educational, disciplined, and deeply concerned with embodied skill. Classical Ayurveda recognized childbirth care as a specialized field. Ayurveda gave serious attention to pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum recovery, and the care of the mother. This is important because birth is not a small event in traditional medicine. It is a threshold where strength, vulnerability, nourishment, lineage, and survival meet. Classical guidance discussed the mother's diet, emotional state, bodily changes, timing, support, and recovery after delivery. Some people find this fascinating because it shows that Ayurveda did not treat reproduction as a side topic. It understood that the beginning of life required its own knowledge. The mother's condition mattered because she was not simply a vessel. Her body, mind, digestion, sleep, and support shaped the experience. In many traditional cultures, postpartum care became a protected time with warmth, rest, and specific foods used to rebuild strength. Modern life often rushes people back into normal activity. Ayurveda asks whether that rush ignores one of the most demanding transformations the body can undergo. Birth required knowledge because birth required reverence. Children received separate attention through the branch called Kamara. Ayurveda did not treat children as small adults. Kamara is the branch concerned with infants and children, and its existence shows a detailed awareness that early life has special needs. The young body is developing. Digestion is different. Sleep is different. Communication is limited. Vulnerability is greater. This made observation especially important. A child's cry, appetite, complexion, growth, elimination, and behavior could all become clues. Some people find this striking because it shows how comprehensive the traditional system wanted to be. Life was studied from its beginning, not only after adult problems appeared. Care for children also includes care for the people raising them. Feeding, protection, routine, and emotional environment all shape the young person. In a more speculative mood, one could say Ayurveda saw childhood as the first programming of the body's relationship with the world. The earliest rhythms may leave long echoes. That is why the tradition placed special knowledge at the doorway of life. Ayurveda organized knowledge into 8 major branches of healing. The classical system is often described through 8 branches, which gives Ayurveda the feeling of a complete medical universe. These branches covered internal medicine, surgery, eyes and head conditions, pediatrics, toxicology, mental disturbances, rejuvenation, and vitality. The exact categories may be translated in different ways, but the ambition is clear. Ayurveda was not trying to be a tiny collection of home remedies. It was building a structured map of human suffering and care. Some people find this surprising because modern introductions often reduce the tradition to diet types and herbal teas. The older picture is much larger. It includes wounds, poisons, aging, fertility, childhood, psychology, and prevention. This does not make every claim scientifically settled. It does show the intellectual scale of the project. Ayurveda looked at the human being from many angles and tried to organize healing into a full discipline. The system wanted range. It wanted order. It wanted a place for every major kind of human trouble. The 8 branches made medicine feel like a complete life science. When knowledge is divided into branches, it becomes easier to see the whole tree. Ayurveda's structure suggests that health is not one narrow specialty. It stretches from birth to old age, from digestion to injury, from mind to reproduction, from poison to renewal. That breadth is what makes it feel like a life science rather than a symptom system. Some people are drawn to this because it offers a vision of medicine before extreme fragmentation. The healer may not master everything equally, but the tradition itself tries to keep the person intact. A problem of the eye still belongs to a body. A childhood condition still belongs to a family. A mental disturbance still belongs to diet, conduct, memory, and environment. The branches separate knowledge without completely severing it. That is the key. Ayurveda wants categories, but it does not want the human being lost inside them. The map is broad because life is broad. Healing must be wide enough to follow it. Veterinary Ayurveda shows the tradition extended concern beyond humans. One of the more surprising details in the wider Ayurvedic world is the existence of medical knowledge for animals. Traditions developed around the care of horses, elephants, cattle, and other creatures important to society. This makes sense historically. but it is still fascinating. Animals were not only property in a practical system. They were living beings whose health shaped agriculture, travel, war, ritual, and survival. A sick horse could change a journey. An injured elephant could affect a kingdom. A diseased cow could threaten a household. Some people find veterinary Ayurveda interesting because it expands the tradition's moral and observational field. The same attention given to diet, wound, strength, and environment could be turned toward non-human life. It also reminds us that ancient medicine grew from close contact with animals. People watched movement, appetite, fatigue, temperament, and injury across species. The healing imagination did not stop at the human skin. Life itself was worthy of study. Royal courts helped preserve Ayurvedic learning across generations. Medical knowledge survives when a society gives it protection, prestige, and resources. Royal courts played a role in preserving, supporting, and spreading Ayurvedic traditions across different periods. A ruler needed healthy soldiers, stable households, capable advisors, strong animals, and public legitimacy. Physicians could serve all of those needs. Courts also created places where scholars, texts, recipes, instruments, and debates could gather. Some people find this fascinating because it shows that medicine was never separate from power. Healing knowledge moved through patronage as well as through families and teachers. A formula might survive because a court valued it. A manuscript might be copied because someone important protected it. A physician's reputation might spread because a king trusted him. That does not make the knowledge false or true by itself. It reveals the machinery of survival. Ancient wisdom does not float through time untouched. It travels through institutions, money, memory, politics, devotion, and need. What reaches us has passed through history's filters. Palm leaf manuscripts carried medical ideas through fragile centuries. Before printing and digital storage, Ayurvedic knowledge often traveled through handwritten manuscripts. Palm leaves could hold verses, formulas, classifications, and commentaries, but they were fragile. Heat, insects, moisture, handling, neglect, and war could destroy them. This gives the survival of old medical texts a dramatic quality. Every manuscript that remains is almost a survivor from another world. Someone prepared the leaf. Someone wrote carefully. Someone stored it. Someone copied it before decay erased it. Some people find this captivating because it turns knowledge into a physical object with a pulse of danger around it. Wisdom was not guaranteed to survive. It had to be carried by human effort. A single missing folio could break a sequence. A copying error could change meaning. A local lineage could preserve a teaching unknown elsewhere. Ayurveda's textual history is therefore not just intellectual. It is material, vulnerable, and almost cinematic. Ideas crossed centuries on leaves that could crumble in the hand. Sanskrit terms kept subtle meanings that translation can flatten. Ayurveda's key words often carry meanings that are difficult to capture in a single English phrase. Agni becomes digestive fire, but it also suggests transformation. Ojas becomes vitality, but that does not fully express its depth. Dosha becomes humor or constitution, yet neither word lands perfectly. This matters because translation can make a living idea feel smaller than it is. Some people find this fascinating because it reveals how much philosophy hides inside vocabulary. A tradition is not only made of doctrines, it is made of words that gather associations over centuries. When those words move into another language, something may be clarified and something may be lost. This does not mean Sanskrit must be treated as magical or untouchable. It means careful listening is needed. The original terms are like dense seeds. English can open them, but it can also flatten them into labels. Ayurveda becomes richer when we realize that its language is part of its medicine. Modern researchers study Ayurveda while debating evidence and safety. Ayurveda now sits in a complicated modern space. It is admired by many, questioned by many, commercialized by some, and studied by researchers who try to separate useful insights from unsupported claims. That debate is not a weakness. It is part of what happens when an ancient system enters a world of clinical trials, regulation, global markets, and public health standards. Some people want every old teaching accepted immediately. Others want the whole tradition dismissed because it does not fit modern categories. The more interesting path is harder. Study carefully. Test claims where testing is possible. Protect people from contamination, exaggeration, and false promises. Preserve what is valuable. Question what is uncertain. Ayurveda deserves neither blind worship nor lazy contempt. Its long history makes it worth examining, but history alone does not prove safety or effectiveness. The modern challenge is to bring curiosity and rigor into the same room. That meeting may be where the next chapter begins. Integrative clinics now explore where tradition and science can meet. Across the world, some clinics and practitioners are trying to combine traditional health systems with modern medical care. Ayurveda appears in that conversation through diet advice, lifestyle support, stress management, yoga-related practices, and selected herbal approaches. The interesting question is not whether one system should swallow the other. The question is where each can contribute without pretending to be what it is not. Modern medicine is strong in acute care, diagnostics, surgery, emergency treatment, and many drug therapies. Ayurveda offers a language for routine, constitution, digestion, seasonal living, and patient participation. Some people find this meeting exciting because it suggests a future beyond the old fight between mainstream and alternative thinking. But integration must be honest. It needs trained practitioners, safety checks, communication with doctors, and respect for evidence. The best version is not a mashup of slogans. It is a careful bridge. The body receives care from more than one angle, while the patient remains protected at the center. Global interest grew because people wanted prevention and personalization. Ayurveda's worldwide appeal did not come only from exotic curiosity. Many people were searching for something they felt was missing. They wanted care before breakdown. They wanted advice that noticed individual difference. They wanted food, sleep, stress, and daily routine to matter. They wanted a language that treated the body as connected to the way life is lived. Ayurveda arrived with all of that. It offered ancient vocabulary for very modern dissatisfaction. Some people are drawn to it because it feels like a rebellion against one-size-fits-all wellness. Others see in it a slower form of self-study. The global spread also created problems. Simplification, branding, poor training, and exaggerated claims can distort the tradition. Yet the attraction remains understandable. People are tired of being treated as averages. They want to know why the same advice helps one person and fails another. Ayurveda's answer is not always easy, but its promise is powerful. Look at the person, not only the problem. Ayurveda's deepest lesson is that ordinary choices accumulate quietly. The most practical part of Ayurveda may also be the most difficult to accept. A life is shaped by what is repeated. One meal rarely defines health. One late night rarely destroys balance. One angry thought rarely changes everything. But repeated meals, repeated late nights, repeated reactions, and repeated neglect become a pattern. Ayurveda watches that pattern with great seriousness. Some people find this teaching unsettling because it removes the drama. There may be no single villain. There may be no one moment when everything went wrong. Instead, the body may be responding to hundreds of small decisions that seemed too ordinary to matter. This is also hopeful. If imbalance can accumulate, so can repair. A better morning repeated. A wiser meal repeated. A calmer response repeated. A regular bedtime repeated. The tradition's power lies in this slow arithmetic of living. The future is not only changed by grand resolutions, it is quietly negotiated through the next ordinary choice. Its wisdom asks you to study your life before changing it. Ayurveda does not begin with the command to transform everything immediately. It begins with observation. Notice hunger. Notice sleep. Notice energy after certain foods. Notice how weather affects mood. Notice when irritation appears. Notice what happens after travel, conflict, indulgence, or rest. This is more radical than it sounds because most people try to change themselves before they understand themselves. They copy a routine, buy a product, adopt a diet, or follow advice meant for someone else. Ayurveda slows the process down. It asks for evidence from your own life. Some people find this deeply engaging because it turns self-improvement into investigation rather than punishment. The body becomes a case study. The day becomes data. The pattern becomes visible. Only then does change become intelligent. Without study, effort may become random. With study, even small adjustments can be precise. Ayurveda's wisdom here is patient and sharp. Do not attack your life blindly. Learn how it works first. The final teaching is simple. Balance is practiced before it is found. Ayurveda's ending lesson is not that balance appears once and stays forever. Balance is renewed through practice. The world keeps changing. The body ages. Seasons turn. Work shifts. Relationships change. Appetite rises and falls. The mind becomes clear, then restless, then dull, then clear again. Because life moves, balance must be maintained through attention. This is what makes Ayurveda feel both ancient and endlessly current. It does not offer a final frozen state where no adjustment is needed. It offers a way of listening and responding. Some people find this comforting because it removes the pressure to become perfect. A person may drift. The point is to notice and return. A routine may fail. The point is to learn and rebuild. Health becomes a relationship rather than a trophy. In that relationship, wisdom is practical. Eat with care. Rest with respect. Watch the signs. Change with the season. The path is not found once. It is practiced every day. And so, we have wandered through Ayurveda as a way of seeing life itself. We have seen how this ancient tradition studied the body through food, timing, breath, sleep, season, and attention. It asked people to notice the small signals that modern life often rushes past. Hunger, tiredness, warmth, restlessness, the feeling after a meal, the way the mind changes with the weather, the way a simple habit can become a hidden force. Ayurveda does not ask us to live perfectly. It asks us to live more observantly. It reminds us that balance is not found in one dramatic moment. It is practiced through ordinary choices, repeated with care. A meal can become a lesson. A morning can become a reset. A season can become a teacher. And the body, when we listen to it with patience, can become a guide back toward steadiness. So now, Let the ideas of the night begin to settle. Let the old words drift away from the mind and allow only their feeling to remain. There is nothing more to solve, nothing more to understand. Just the quiet sense that life can be met more gently, one breath at a time. If you enjoyed this journey, you are welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps others find their way here too. And if you happen to still be awake, another Sleepy Wisdom video will be waiting on the screen. But for now, let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing slow. Let the day loosen its grip as your thoughts become lighter and the room grows still around you. Sleep well and good night.